This is the new epidemic of the United States, and we only have ourselves to blame. Recently, there has been an increased interest in owning exotic animals as pets, growing beyond stereotypical cats and dogs. Snakes, alligators, chimps, lions, tigers, and bears are replacing dogs as man's best friend.
Around the Chicagoland area, it was a big problem. We had lots and lots of exotics because people don't realize they get that little cute iguana, and that grows a foot a year. And they get that little Burmese python that's oh so cute, and that grows 1 to 2 feet a year. So the law says you can't have an animal over 6 feet with exotics like that. Well, in less than a year, you've got an animal that's over 6 feet, and it's not domestic. It is a wild animal, and if you stop handling that animal, it just reverts back to its natural state.
After some time of owning these pets, their needs increase and become overwhelming, almost impossible for one person to handle. Even in zoos, zookeepers are unable to provide a diet equivalent to the animal's diet in the wild, but do their best to keep the animals healthy. Zoos provide the best care outside of the wild because of their resources.
I think zoos have a place where they can serve as a good avenue for education about wildlife and wildlife conservation, and in some cases even captive breeding for endangered species.
But people who want to privately own animals do not have these resources, and therefore cannot adequately provide for the animals.
In the wild, they eat up to 60 different kinds of trees. Here in the zoo, it's hard to ship enough tree leaves in to feed them, so we have to give them alfalfa hay, and we give them a pelleted grain feed as well. We can give them tree leaves, but they're not from Africa. We cut them locally, and we just give them to them as treats.
Our feed budget, I don't know exactly what it is. The vet is in charge of that department, but it's what, $500,000 a year to feed the number of animals that I said. You take a male lion's going to eat 9-10 pounds of meat a day at what? I mean, what is meat? $3.50 a pound, something like that. So you're looking at a couple $100 a week to feed a lion.
Once the owners realize they are incapable of financially supporting an exotic animal, they often decide to abandon it in a non-native habitat, potentially endangering humans, other animals, and the environment.
They start moving into the towns, and so that's why we get increased occurrences of seeing coyotes or bears or mountain lions, and you hear story after story about people's cats, dogs, or other small animals being eaten because the coyotes and other wild animals don't have any food, so they find food where they can.
I just think it's irresponsible. If you're not trained to do it, you're going to put yourself in danger, you're going to put other people in danger, and you're going to neglect the animals more than likely, not knowing exactly what each one of them needs, because they're all very different and need very different things.
And exotic species can be somewhat benign in the fact that they won't cause any issue, but in more cases than not, they become what are called invasive. And then they can have devastating effects, and we have a long history. Humans have a long history of moving organisms from one place to another without regard to what it might do.
Recently, in Zanesville, Ohio, a man committed suicide after releasing his collection of 56 exotic animals.
People love animals, but loving an animal, that doesn't mean you can care for an animal, nor does that mean you should buy and house an animal that should not be in someone's private home.
You're right, Anderson. What you're doing is you're buying a bunch of loaded guns is what you're doing. You're just buying a bunch of loaded guns and waiting for them to go off. And that's what happened up here today.
I feel like exotic pets in general are usually a form of conspicuous consumption, which I'm against in principle. But this one in particular is pretty bad, I think, because it has the potential to really hurt people.
I think people have those animals for thinking that they can keep them as pets, but they're really wild animals, and I think that I wouldn't be in favor of it. In fact, I would be more in favor of stringent regulations and making sure that people who are caring for those sort of animals have a good solid biological background, that they know what they're doing.
Greater precautions and federal regulations could limit these damaging effects.
I could pull out my files cases of dad playing on bed with 5-year-old son, and their pet tiger came up to play too. Oops, accidentally bit the kid too hard, killed him.
Make it mandatory that the people have to take some type of class on how to train the different types of animals, like a class for a tiger, a class for a bear, and they have to have certain facilities that the animals can roam around and so that they can get their exercise but aren't going to go out and eat someone's child.
What's the solution is responsible behavior. People, if they're going to have those sort of things, they need to be responsible. In some cases, like in South Florida, there have been accidental releases when a hurricane comes through, and organisms that people have the cages get damaged and they escape, but most of the time it's just irresponsible ownership.
There are responsible alternatives to releasing exotic pets into non-native habitats, including rescue centers and humane shelters.
We do encounter a lot of different animals here. You would be surprised. We hit ferrets, hamsters, guinea pigs, snakes, boa constrictors, which are snakes, pet spiders, parrots, all kinds of birds, iguanas, lots of different things. People don't realize all the things that we encounter out here. We do. We adopt about 80 animals a month out of here, which is a pretty high number. We get in about 3,000 a year.
When I first started working here, cats left out in cages for at least an hour in about 93-degree heat, no water, and pretty much sitting on top of each other because the kennels were so small.
We have cages over the last 4 years. We have gotten so many cages just to hold extra animals. We don't have any more cage space. You can see we're pretty cluttered over here.
As a society, why do we see the need to own exotic animals when our shelters are overflowing with loving pets that need a home?